Hey guys, this video was suggested by one of the kind viewers in the comments section, so if you have a video idea you would like me to do, please feel free to drop the suggestion there, or on Discord, link in the description, or on Patreon, link to which is also in the description. Anyway, so Vaporeon used to be a standard as demonstrated by this, real time capsule. I mean, forget a replay or an old log converted to a replay. This is a screen recording of a Wi-Fi battle from the actual game. Screen recording because it was, played on an emulator, obviously. But yeah, we look at the date here, February 9th, 2010. Uploaded by Cool Trainer Alex, one of Wi-Fi's finest. He actually went on to invent Colberberry Azel. We were so proud when one of our own invented this new Smogan standard to take on Machamp Lead. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, he was a great player, and as you saw from the recorder that shows the team, our own version of replays back then there was a Vaporeon on both sides. Nowadays, that is unthinkable and has been for a very, very long time. So, what happened? Well, Vaporeon used to be a standard way back when, and the reason was basically that it shut down offense really hard, just as an almost platonic ideal of the bulky water. Because it takes on Gyarados beautifully with HP Electric, and it also stifles Infernape. Mixed Infernape was a terror at this time, and Vaporeon is very light, so it's not trounced by Grass Knot. And Mixape was so terrifying. Oh, it's the Scar and Bliss killer. How do we get around this? But even if you weren't running Scar and Bliss, you just liked having the Infernape counter that was Vaporeon, / the answer to a lot of offensive stuff in general. It shut down a ton of common offensive Pokemon used together. You would, if you're using the combination of a Choice Band Scizor and Choice Scarf Flygon, you got a couple Pokemon that just are completely hapless against Vaporeon. And you would very quickly, have an offensive team that's quite good against a lot, but you would, run out of steam very quickly against Vappy. So, if you had another Pokemon to take on Gyarados, Taunt Gyarados, like Bold Celebi, another very popular Pokemon at the time, although that one's actually come back in recent years, then I really like Toxic on Vaporeon, which, sounds, oh wow, Toxic Vaporeon, but really, HP Electric was almost a sacred slot. And if you ran Toxic on Vaporeon, then you you completely turned the tables against offensive Suicune, which was also becoming popular around this time. It was like the more offensive counterpart to Vaporeon vis-a-vis the HP Electric Gyarados answering of it all. With Call of Mind that you set up in Vaporeon's face and eventually beat it. With Toxic, it's like, well, Suicune's going to lose this. Yeah, Vaporeon also was notable at the time for its Water Absorb, letting it blank Crocoon, the mono-attacking Surf set. Although, technically in a one-on-one you would lose because you would get pressure stalled, but yeah, in a nutshell, you would play around a lot of Suicune sets just by having a Vaporeon. You would play around, dangerous things in general. Like, even though it didn't hard counter something like Starmie, let's say, it was a very good pivot into it. Yeah, it was a staple of all sorts of teams, and its only real flaw was that it was complete setup fodder for stall. And even then, I mean, hey, it Wish supports. Obviously, Wish Protect, 2-turn recovery, relying on your own Wish. And yes, if you're wondering, is that its downfall? Kind of, but only partly. But remember, that Wish support, it takes hits in general, and then it passes the wishes to its teammates. So even against stall, you could do a lot worse. And it's like, oh, well, Vaporeon passed a Wish to Infernape, and now Infernape is much more threatening. Isn't that wonderful? Because it sort of got a second life. So, yeah, Vaporeon was great, and especially if you were playing on Wi-Fi where stall was very rare, then you didn't really have to worry about your Vaporeon becoming setup fodder for Spidef Scarm. Although, depending on who you're playing, if you're playing a more serious player who was using Spidef Scarm in general, then then you would be like, oh, I better watch out with this Vaporeon thing. And especially around the end of the Latias Salamence metagame, then Spidef Roserade was also popping up, and that became a Wi-Fi favorite over the summer of 2010. And, I mean, talk about turning Vaporeon into setup fodder. Goodness gracious. So, yeah, of course, Vaporeon was also a solid choice on some stall teams. You know, Stall at the time really liked Rest Talk Gyarados, but it was a... but you could also use Vaporeon because obviously Wish support is great, and you know, not having to rely on Stealth Rock being removed at all costs, or almost at all costs, is very helpful. So, what went wrong? Well, it wasn't just the Spidef Spikers, especially Roserade, turning Vaporeon into setup fodder, because you know that wasn't really new for it. Matter of fact, in that metagame, Vaporeon was a fine partner to Roserade. So it wasn't really about that. It was more about the developments that were going on post-Salamence ban in general. It wasn't like some sort of targeted anti-Vaporeon movement. It was more that all the changes that were already taking place, they all naturally just completely dumpstered Vaporeon. So now this next piece of material, this battle log, this is from 2014, I believe. Yeah, March 6, 2014. It was Smoking Premier League between two great DPP players, Sweepage and Ladybug. Ladybug, a big inspiration for me when I started playing, and I knew Sweepage for his temper, and the fact he was very good. Anyway, what was surprising about this battle in particular was actually that Ladybug brought a Vaporeon. It doesn't pop up until like turn 30-something, I don't think. But what's funny is that in this battle, you see everything that was really... why the metagame became so hostile towards Vaporeon. And it wasn't just hostility, but also the presence of a new rival, the Rising Milotic, which, of course, to this day is a UU Pokemon, but nobody would question that Milotic is a much better Pokemon than Vaporeon in OU now, and this has been the case for a long time. It used to be the other way around. Like, yeah, Milotic's pretty cool, but Vaporeon's better overall. Now it's not even a contest. So it's not so much about here we see Vaporeon switch in and dodge a Toxic from Heatran, and yes, Vaporeon doesn't do well into status Heatran, whether it's Toxic or Lava Plume, because of the 2-turn recovery. But Milotic Milotic's better in that regard for sure. In that the instant recovery means it's not scraping for its life as soon as it eats the status. But the increase in Heatran post Dragons means that you need to have your water more efficient into Heatran in general. And this is one reason why Starmie became so popular, because Heatran was the #1 stealth rocker, and Starmie spins on it, very easily. And if Heatran decides, I'm going to Toxic, or I'm going to, Will-O-Wisp or Lava Plume, Starmie is Natural Cure. So Starmie is a water type that answers Heatran's status stuff. Rest Hog Gyarados, you have Rest. Even Swampert was falling out of fashion because of HP Grass Heatran being so popular, but also in the wake of the Dragon ban, then grasses were popping up all over the place. I mean, Roserade was already very popular, but it only became more popular. And then Shaman, rose up and became a metagame standard. And Breloom was already great, but without Latias and Salamence to deal with, oh my god, it was everywhere. So basically, it was, in a nutshell, Vaporeon was still a good Heatran counter, right? I mean, if you're going to say, oh, well, you have to have a perfect answer to everything Heatran can do, then there are no Pokemon like that, right? In a nutshell, it's still fine, because if you really are concerned about status Heatran, you can pivot around it generally, if you're conscientious. But it's more about what Heatran's being paired with. It's not even that Heatran needs to status you, so much as the fact that Heatran's common teammates now take advantage of Vaporeon so much. It's like, oh, sweet, they have a Vaporeon. I'm going to abuse this really hard. One of these is, of course, Breloom, which I mean, you can't toxic that. Oh, can't you run Ice Beam on Vaporeon and then you don't even beat Gyarados? So, and of course, you're also, just because you have Ice Beam doesn't mean that Breloom won't be able to come in and take advantage of you. You know, on 3 of your 4 moves: Wish, Protect, Surf. So. Yeah, there's that, and there's also, remember the Starmie thing, the way Starmie switches in on Heatran now? Well, that kicked off a whole war of, which honestly deserves its own video, you know, the Starmie wars of post-Dragon's DPP. I'm going to write that down as I keep talking. But basically anything that invited Starmie in was like, dude, why are you giving it this opportunity to get rid of hazards, you know? You cannot afford to do that. And in fact, that's why Swampert started becoming popular again, because it was a stealth rocker that Starmie couldn't just mess with super freely. Obviously, Heatran could adapt its moveset, but you started needing Pursuit to handle Starmie, things like that. You know, spin blocking, you know, Pasho, HP Grass, HP Electric. But basically, Starmie is everywhere. And during the Starmie epidemic, you know, where Starmie is on every team, then what is one of Starmie's favorite entry points? You know, Vaporeon. And yeah, okay, it can run HP Electric, so it's even more vulnerable to Breloom, of course. But it's still not threatening Starmie in that same way, and, like, it's not doing enough, you know? Like, I'm not saying Starmie will recover stall it, but it'll pivot in, it'll get the spin off, and... again, then you also have, by not having an HP Electric Vaporeon, then you are losing to offensive Suicune, as I mentioned, because you don't have Toxic. Sometimes you even want Roar. Roar Vaporeon was very good if you could afford it, if you had that answer to Taunt Gyarados, which was so common in the standard. So, yeah, especially if you were running it alongside a Roserade, that was a great pairing. So, but all of this really kind of goes away when you consider how easily you were letting in both Starmie and Breloom, and these are very, very commonly paired with Heatran. And to say nothing else of, like, the Zapdos taking advantage of you further, and Zapdos being absolutely everywhere. And you don't want... so, like, Heatran plus an entire team that is effortlessly beating up Vaporeon. Because nobody is using this because, oh, we need to use Breloom and Starmie and Zapdos, so we threaten Vaporeon at every corner. They just have such incredible synergy. And let's also consider the fact that T-Tar only becomes more popular once people realize, I gotta use this to counter Zapdos, Heatran, everything. And just do a wall break more easily against things like Blissey. So... with this in mind, then Vaporeon is just kind of, you know, left in the dust because its walling ability, even into Heatran, that 2-turn Wish Protect thing, when people just realize more and more, T-Tar used to be not so common. It used to be not common to the point where once Goki brought a Tyranitar to a battle, and people were like, wait, Goki using Tyranitar? It's very, very rare. Which is funny because, you know, one of his most famous games, which I actually have on the channel, has him DD Tar sweeping, but that was a different metagame. In general, I've gone through enough Goki games to see, wow, he really did not have a lot of T-Tars. And there were some people who were just like, yeah, I don't like the sand. It's coarse and rough and wears down my Infernape with Life Orb. So, with that, then, with sand becoming almost the de facto state, you know, it was popular, yeah, during Latias and whatever, but now it was really like, oh, it could be T-Tar or it could be Scizor. Now it's like, I need T-Tar. When Scizor starts countering Zapdos, let me know. So, with that in mind, then Vaporeon is, you know, struggling to keep up. You start running circles around it. If you run like an old school style of offensive team where it's like mixed Infernape, Scizor, Flygon, Starmie, you know, things like that, then yeah, okay, you will get shut down by by Vaporeon. You know, what's your answer to Vaporeon? Oh, I hope to SD in front of it with Lucario and then sweep. Oh, Vaporeon's paired with Gliscor a lot. Yeah, so I guess I lose that one, right? But yeah, the Vaporeon Gliscor combination was a favorite of many great players. And yeah, but with this like new style of offense, I mean, forget offense even. Like Vaporeon's not even handling offense, so it not being good into balanced teams, that's more forgivable. But against offense, even like, well, what are you even using it for? So in this battle, Sweep is using, a status Heatran and a Starmie and a Breloom, and it's just completely... I mean, look, on this turn in particular, I didn't even plan that. Oh my god. Vaporeon uses Hidden Power Electric into a bulky Starmie, does 41%. I was thinking, oh, it did 2 KOs, right? And I was like, offensive Starmie without lefties, sure. But yeah, I mean, it's just... So what happens in this battle is perfectly representative of why Vaporeon fell out of the metagame in general. Like, Starmie comes into Vaporeon, spins on it, and then Breloom switches into it. Horrible stuff. It's just... And with how Breloom was dominating the metagame, you had it just... You could not give it such free switch-ins. And... Obviously, Breloom is going to get free switches at some point, but if you are going to give Breloom free switch-ins, you better be doing so through a Pokemon that takes on a lot of the metagame. And just in general, Vaporeon's so easy to run over because it's so slow, Now, compare it to Milotic, where, so we're just going to finish off this log, where, Vaporeon just gives Breloom free switch-ins and Focus Punch, and it's paired with Zapdos, but it's not enough. So yeah, oh my god, so the Heatran Lava Plume burns the Vaporeon, and it's giving Breloom free switch-ins, and it stays in and surfs and does 34, so it doesn't give a sub, but I mean, it's risking Seed Bomb destruction, and Starmie just sits on it. Oh my god, it's terrible. Even with aromatherapy support to get rid of the burn, it's so passive and reactive, and people realize, look, it's a good bulky water and everything, but you gotta have something more. Now, around the time of this log, March 2014. I remember earlier in this tournament, Heist had a team with offensive Milotic, and I really liked that offensive Milotic, and I started experimenting with it myself, trying to push it as far as possible. And then in the World Cup of Pokemon, a couple months later, then this was July 20th, 2014. Then I built this team with my buddy August, who was my teammate. He was in the DPP slot. And it was Hazards plus offensive Milotic. And with offensive Milotic speed, Milotic speed in general is a big trump card over Vaporeon. But we're going to focus on the offensive set first. Because this was like, well, no way Vaporeon can do this. Vaporeon can't come close to Milotic, which, Milotic is as fast as Gyarados, which is great. And if you go Timid Max Speed, you outrun the bold Starmie that was absolutely everywhere at this time. Remember those Starmie Wars? Well, a lot of it involved pursuit, and you make the Starmie as physically defensive as possible to avoid the T-Tar Crunch Pursuit KOing you. And what that means is, look at this here. And for those not listening, or for those not watching, just listening, don't worry. Milo gets the lefties first. Starmie doesn't. Starmie gets lefties second, and Starmie gets finished off by an HP Electric. Thing of beauty. So basically, this Milotic is like an offensive Suicune that has the as far as checking Gyarados with HP Electric and pure water typing goes, but it's also like Vaporeon in that it can take the hits still while being an offensive Pokemon because it's so naturally especially bulky. So you switch into Heatran, offensive Suicune gets worn down in sand. That's another video I have to make. DPP Suicune and the fight against Sandstorm. Especially compounded by Stealth Rock. If you think, it's like Advance, no, it's worse. But with Milotic, you have this offensive Suicune style, offensive profile. Yeah, you don't need to call Mind, but you are immediately more threatening because of your higher special attack, actually. And you get to use your defensive profile more easily because you have the immediate heal of Recover. So Vaporeon cannot match this, and suddenly offensive Milotic becomes this new standard. So if you're, thinking about DPP at this time, which was, not a ton of people, then you start thinking, okay, well, Vaporeon at this time is already very, very rare. Not just from the Ladybug Sweepage game, but even after, it's like, it'd be like maybe once a tournament it'd show up. It's like, Vaporeon could still do stuff, right? And not really. And I mean, I remember Panamaxis used against Smurf in SPL Finals 2016, but that was because Smurf was someone who only ever used offense, like hardcore offense. Like not just Gyarados, but like Kingdra. I mean, Vaporeon is like an amazing answer to Kingdra. With Roar, then you beat that DD Chesto Arrested, which was so popular at this time. And so he pretty much just counter-teamed Smurf with Vaporeon because it beat all that, water spam and Fernape that he would love to use. But in general, I mean, at that time in 2016, Clefable was becoming standard. And I mean, you want to talk about something that ruins Vaporeon completely. Sorry, not that replay. We want this one. Yeah. Talk about something that ruins Vaporeon even further. Knockoff. I mean, with Blissey into Vaporeon, at least if you get hazards of your own, you start toxing it, roaring it, then you start messing with it. But Clefable just sits on you completely. So, yeah, but even before Clef, Vaporeon had really begun dropping off the map. So, in this battle, this next replay, then it was from the finals of the World Cup Pokemon, July 28th, 2014, a bit over a week later. And this was an Azelf lead offense team, and we put offensive Milotic on it because of how much we liked it. And it was like, oh, it was just a hazard abuser? No, it's basically like an offensive Suicune. But even on this team with Azelf lead, that's how quickly it played. So, yeah, and it's got that natural offensive defensive utility. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Outspeeds a Dragonite here. And, yeah. Anyway, luck in this game aside, because, oh boy, there was a lot of it. Offensive Milotic becomes a sort of standard. I started building a lot of teams with it. And offensively, then it... sorry, I just saw it miss the Hydro Pump after the Roserade. Oh, the poor Rose. Oh, my God. Anyway, nonsense aside. Yeah, oh, it even paralyzed the Inferno. What is going on? Horrifying. So... The point of this is that offensive Milo became like a standard among players in the know, and if you were going to think about Vaporeon on a defensive team, you would start thinking about Milotic instead. Now, why would you think about Milotic over Vaporeon defensively? Doesn't have similar issues? Yeah, okay, status and all that, but Milotic is much less passive. Because remember that same Recover, which fuels its offensive defensive abilities on its offensive sets, it's also got that for the defensive sets. Forget this Wish Protect 2-turn exploitable and sand nonsense. You just heal off immediately. And it's not just an in-battle thing where you need only one turn to heal as opposed to two in tight situations, which, so you don't get exploited that way. You also get a freed up moveset. So remember how, we were talking about how Vaporeon has to choose between HP Electric and Ice Beam and Toxic and Roar and Haze. Now, Milotic doesn't get Roar, but it gets Haze, so you can use it for defensive Suicunes. And offensive Suicunes a little bit, but Toxic, whatever. Basically, point is, Haze also for Kingdra. That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, you get two of those moves instead of one, and that is major. So, Surf, Recover, and then pick two of Ice Beam, HP Electric, Toxic, and Haze. So whatever you like will work there. It depends on your team. But basically getting two of those is so good. And you know what else is amazing? Remember how Vaporeon is taken advantage of by Breloom? Well, that's because Vaporeon's really slow. So even if you have Ice Beam, then you gotta knock it on the switch. Now, Milotic can still be outsped by Breloom with lots of speed investment, but Breloom with lots of speed investment does not have as much HP. And the fact of the matter is, Milotic is naturally fast. I mean, 198 speed, which it has with 0 speed investment, that doesn't seem fast, and of course in the grand scheme of things it's not. But remember, Breloom is starting out at 176, and a lot of the time you want a bulky, hard-hitting Breloom. So lots of HP, lots of attack, sometimes, defense EVs to do things like have Scarf Flygon U-turn not break your substitute. So, with that, then you are not... you're just trying to invest in enough speed to outrun Skarmory and lots of T-Tars, right? and that's going to take you in the like 40 to 50 to like 60-ish range. You start creeping on Spadef Heatran if you've got superpower in your moveset to, beat that one-on-one. And then obviously you can keep going, but, every EV you put into speed is, being taken out of, bulk or, God forbid, attack. And so Milotic, Vaporeon can go, against Vaporeon, Breloom can go max HP, max attack, and still outspeed it by a mile. Against Milotic, you gotta invest a lot in speed, and you're losing something else if you do that. Something major. Now you could say, oh, well, a lot of Breloom are just offensive, and so they're lots of attack, lots of speed. Okay, but that means it really has to be careful about switching into that Ice Beam. So if Breloom is going to outspeed you, then even if you stand in Ice Beam one-on-one, you're going to be smacking it real hard. I mean, Bulkless Breloom already struggles taking on Swampert Ice Beam, and Milotic has 30 more points of special attack than Swampert uninvested. So, yeah, beautiful stuff there. Now, in this replay, if you're watching, then you see the heroics that Milotic is pulling off. But see, this is how crucial one-turn recovery is. This Milotic has been, or it switched into a Heatran Magma Storm with Poison, and now it's taking on a Kingdra still. So, yeah, obviously Marvel Scale is also not a saving grace, but it's a good compensation, for... well, if you want to status Milotic, suddenly its defense goes through the roof, and you're going to struggle to take it out with things like T-Tar. Or, as you see, this +1 Kingdra Outrage doing 40%. So, Milotic switches and helps play around, like Suicune, Heatran, Kingdra. This is lots of stuff that Milotic helps you play around. That's one of the really beautiful things about it. So this replay is from several years later. It's July 7th, 2018. And again, August is my World Cup teammate, and we built this team together. We wanted this stall team, and we wanted Milotic because of its flexibility in taking on things like Heatran and Dragonite, and more on Dragonite in a second, while not being passive, while not inviting in Breloom. So yeah, that's really, really crucial. Now, on the subject of Dragonite, there was a team built by Heist in the summer of 2010, before Salamence was even banned. I still remember it. If you look up my Wi-Fi battle against Shofu, just look up Wi-Fi battle, Shofu versus Blazin' Kickin' Chicken. That is what my username stands for, if you are not aware. And in that battle, I used Heist's team, because I was 14 and still learning. And that team was built during the Salamence era, and our battle took place right after Salamence's ban. But it was Specs Heatran, Stealth Rock Trick Room Bronzong, Spikes Roserade, Scarf Rotom, DD Tar, and Milotic. Now, Heist was using Milotic even in the Salamence era, specifically because I remember the EVs still. 248 HP, 204 defense, 56 special defense, Calm. Now, as a bulky water, Milotic would generally follow in the Vaporeon tradition or the Suicune tradition of, bold, max defense, max HP. But with the Calm 56 Spadef, then it was designed to avoid, to be able to switch into mixed Salamence's Draco Meteor and recover it off and be just fine. And that was really crucial, considering how broken Mence was. And then, when we were building his team, to my recollection, I suggested the same spread because it did a lot more cool stuff besides just... what did I mean to say? Besides just eating the Salamence stuff. It also took 2 Life Orb Starmie Thunderbolts. The Firewater Grass Cores were rising out of UU and into OU at this time. Life Orb Starmie was dissecting them and being a part of them, so being able to take 2 of those, everyone was terrified of Life Orb Starmie at the time. And being able to take 2 of those was fantastic. And obviously, post-Salamence ban, what is everyone replacing Mixed Mence with? Mixed Dragonite. Well, if Milotic can switch into Mixed Mence, then it can certainly switch into Mixed Dragonite. Funnily enough, Mixed Salamence often ran plus speed, and Mixed Knight runs plus special attack, so it actually hits harder, but, Milotic can still get the job done. And what's really funny is that because of that great speed stat, some Mixed Knights, they go really slow. It used to be quiet, max attack, max special attack in the lead slot. And, that is the same speed. Quiet Dragonite has the same speed stat as Breloom to begin with, 176. And so Milotic outruns that by a mile. So you might actually have a Milotic that's faster, a defensive Milotic that's faster than a Mixed Dragonite. Of course, standard Mixed Dragonite goes up to above T-Tar speed, but still, there is that possibility that, without even trying, Milotic speed gives you a lot of amazing options. So, yeah. Now, this team was not just a one-off for a specific tournament game. I thought it was one of the most reliable teams I'd ever been involved in making, and so I continued to tweak it, and I brought it to a lot of tournament games, really crucial tournament games. That it was one of my most relied-on teams in its time, and yeah, and largely that was off the strength of Milotic. Milo is a very no-nonsense Pokemon, where if the opponent is an unknown quantity of sorts, let's say, whereas you think, oh, they're going to overwhelm me with offense, whatever form of offense they have, Milotic can help against it. It's really nice. Against defensive teams, okay, it's not going to be that useful, but that's what your other Pokemon are for. That's why this team pairs it with Taunt and Gliscor, because against defensive stuff, then that's where Taunt Gliscor takes over. Remember we mentioned the Vaporeon Gliscor core? Well, now it's the Milotic Gliscor core. So yeah, Heist's Milotic team, one of my favorites from 2010. And I always remembered it, and how extraordinary it was, and very unique, and how much work Milotic always put in. I remember I made some other, like in 2011, I had a Milotic team I really enjoyed. I remember I was using Dragon Pulse on it for Kingdra, which was definitely a little excessive. But I had like a Life Orb Mamoswine on that team too. But yeah, Milotic just picks up the slack. That whole platonic ideal of the bulky water that Vaporeon was supposed to be, well, turns out it's Milotic because of that greater flexibility in moveset, and that flexibility in moveset also translates into greater flexibility in battle play. So just far superior overall. And now, if you are going to run a team with a bulky water, like a classic bulky water, not Starmie because it spins, or a Swampert, with its different set of resistances, like the pure water bulky water, then I still like defensive Suicune personally, but Milotic, in terms of like just getting the job done on defense, that Milotic is the Pokemon you want. For example, I made a recent video about one of my favorite tournament games ever, the game against Twash from SPL 2013, the one where I was like, oh, I was in the hospital and I came home for the weekend, I had to play him. And I used a defensive Surf, Ice Beam, Rest Talk Suicune there, and I still liked it for that because it absorbed sleep, but I really think I should have considered Milotic there. Maybe I did. Maybe I wanted the double dog thing. I don't know. But, yeah. Either way, Milotic would have been perfect there because, whether it's Suicune or Vaporeon, Milotic just does that thing of checking Dragonite so beautifully. And I mean, Mixed Flygon, which was taking over the metagame at one point. I mean, Milotic shuts Mixed Flygon down so hard. Even if Mixed Gon goes with something like it goes with something like Draco Meteor and Outrage, and I think it would have a tough time breaking through Milotic, depending on the spread, of course. But yeah, the fact Milotic can take it on so beautifully is something of wonder. And you know what? I'm sure there's so many options for Milotic that haven't been explored yet. Offensive, defensive, whatever. Maybe we see UU style Choice Scarf sets pop up. But yeah, this battle on the screen is my DPP Cup semis game against Bihi. And I really wanted to, put the series away after winning the first one, and I was like, it's Milotic time. And it's just, it switches into Dragonite, and maybe I should have recovered, but I had a feeling I wanted to put the pressure on, and if D-Knight stays and I take it out, and if there's a switch, then I still have a healthy Milotic, but I haven't given the switch away for free. So, and I had a feeling that, not much was going to want to switch into Milotic, because that's the other nice thing. With that naturally nice speed stat and the multiple moves of coverage, then, because I don't think I would ever run Surf, Toxic, Haze, recover Milotic. I think you need Ice Beam for Breloom too badly. So for me, that's me personally though. because that Breloom dissuasion is such a big part of why it's so good. So for me, Milotic has always been Surf, Ice Beam, Recover, and then HP Electric, or Haze, or Toxic. Probably roughly in that order, but Haze helps against Calm Mind Clef, so talk about UU style. But yeah, so yeah, this battle is from May 25th, 2019, and yeah, so. And I think, I personally, I still think this kind of team can work today. I mean, Milotic kind of tends to compete with Latias now, because this was around the time that after Latias was reintroduced. Oh, Latias is like the perfect, bulky Pokemon. It's got similar resists, and it'll displace defensive Milotic. And I disagreed, and that's why I kept using Milotic. Because it's like, yeah, okay, Latias was just fighting, and it's ground immune, and all this stuff, but Milotic also does not fear Tyranitar. Milotic just kind of sits on a lot of stuff that would mess with, good lord, I'm sorry, mess with Lottie. Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of Infernape, remember earlier we mentioned, Vaporeon answers Infernape. Well, at the end of Generation 4, then Life Orb, physical mixed Life Orb, Infernape became popular, and that close combat threatened Vaporeon with Stealth Rock up. So, you could take on the special Mixape with Fire Blast, CC, Grass Knot, HP Ice, because that only had 64 attack EVs, which was max special attack, enough EVs to outrun base 100s, and then 64 left in attack, which I think also happened to be the amount you needed for a very favorable roll to KO Blissey from full HP. But yeah, those CCs Vaporeon ate up. But as soon as Infernape went max attack with a CC, Overheat, and then 2 of Mach Punch, U-Turn, Stone Edge, then it got destroyed. And then Choice Band came along, and those CCs obliterated Vaporeon. And that is what really, really put it away. Now, in terms of taking on Infernape, then Milotic roughly has the same issue of taking CCs. I think Milo's a little physically bulkier than Vaporeon, but someone correct me on that. I think it actually takes a little more damage from Grass Knot. But ultimately, as far as Infernape goes, Latias is the perfect Infernape counter, except for when it U-turns, LOL. But Milotic, you know how Vaporeon with Sand in play, every hit. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that, but some guy just started yelling his head off outside. Oh boy. Anyway. Yeah, so he's probably a Vaporeon fan. He's just so devastated, a decade and a half later. Yeah, Vaporeon would have dropped to UU, really. I don't think Milotic would have risen to OU if we had kept going the usage stats route, but I think Vaporeon definitely would have found its way into UU. Broken? I doubt it. Anyway, to wrap things up, yeah, the thing is, remember Sand and every piece of damage Vaporeon takes is so much harder to get back because you need the 2 turns of Wish Protect, and that's so exploitable. Well, with Milotic, if you pivot into a Fire Blast and then you pivot out or whatever, then you only need that 1 turn of Recover, and that makes it much more sturdy overall, to say nothing of the greater threat overall it's presenting. It'd be great if, it had, yeah, sadly it doesn't have Wish. I would love to run Surf, Recover, Wish Milotic. That'd be amazing. You recover yourself, and it's kind of like Wish Boiled Blissey, but not quite. So, yeah, ultimately Milotic is, I don't think Life Orb Milotic quite would work the same way, a la the way it does in UU. But hey, maybe Life Orb or Specs are just dying to make a comeback. But yeah, I think I really like offensive Milotic still. In the slot on the offensive Suicune slot, traditionally on those aggressive, especially offensive Spikes teams with things like Heatran and a split Ghost, things like that. Obviously, you got to make sure you have some physical backbone. I like Metagross on those teams, for instance, so you can both switch into and directly threaten T-Tar and Spit F Boost and Sand if your Water type isn't going to be Swampert, and thereby doing that. But Milotic, I really like in that sort of offensive Suicune slot because you get the immediate offense out of it, and you get to use it defensively. And it's like, oh, well, what's your Heatran answer? Oh, my Water type, obviously, but I can't actually switch it in, so... I mean, look, if you pair it with Flygon, then, yeah, you use the Flygon as your Heatran switch, Flygon plus T-Tar plus Heatran, whatever. Or you go Swampert Suicune, which also used to be done back in the Wi-Fi days. and combine maybe your Jirachi HP grounds and lures it so you don't need to switch into it as much. Okay, sure. But if you have, outside of those specific circumstances, if you have the offensive water there and you want it to be able to take on Heatran, because the rest of your team you want to run other sets, then Milotic just does such a beautiful job of just being able to heal the damage off like that and keep up the offensive onslaught is just so beautiful. Yeah, and it's got a good speed tier. Like I personally even like modest offensive Milotic. I think now it's better. I used to use it even when Bold Starmie was still around, depending on the team. Like on that team with August that we built, then it had a Trick Iron Ball Bronzong to lure in and ruin Starmie. I think it had the free spin. I mean, notice the recurring Starmie thing. So I think Modest could have worked there for sure. And I had a bunch of other teams with offensive Milotic that had Modest, but now even better in my opinion. Yeah. That's about it. Thank you so much for watching, slash listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.